Well, hello and welcome back to our premier live virtual and hybrid events video conversations. We got another interesting one for you today. If we haven't met before, if this is the first video you've watched, my name is Ken Kahn. I am the Director of Partnerships and Collaboration, and I am with my colleague here.
I'm Roxanne Glauser, Director of Marketing and Learning with i2i Technologies.
So I know you're probably excited. If it's your first time, you're excited. If this is like your 8th time watching us, I'm sure you're excited. Because we have for you today, our topic is going to be on branding and communication support. All right. So let me give you a little bit of background. In our branding and communication support option, we provide professional images and copywriting with guidance for their implementation. So examples of that, this includes things like a co-branded image, event theme images, email signatures, sponsor promotion, social media kits, event website images, content and sequence calendars, digital asset management, virtual backgrounds, and even email marketing platform management and assistance. So that's a lot. All right. That's a lot of stuff. So our question today, and let me tell you, I talked to Roxanne a little bit before this, and she is really excited to share this with you. She has a hot one for us. All right. What is a memorable experience? We want you to share a memorable experience in working with one of those aspects that I mentioned. I know this is difficult because there's so many different memories. You're going to have to hone down to one memory, one memorable experience.
I am so glad you set this up because this has been an area that working with some of our clients recently, we've really been able to grow this, and this has been an area of need for them. And to be able to kind of package that in with our understanding of the virtual events, I think it's really been a great solution. So with that, my favorite, did you say memory? Was that the question?
It's memorable. So like you're going to, I like where this is going because you're going on that positive bent of like a favorite thing. I like that because I was kind of worried there. I was like, this could go, maybe I should have said favorite is what I was thinking because I'm like memorable. It could go south.
I am going to put this as memorable. And one of the things that I really enjoyed is, early on in one of our partnerships that we worked, it was, and just listening to some of the challenges that that this particular organization was having, it became apparent that we could use some of the like kind of brand identity graphics to help kind of communicate what the big challenge is. And the challenge was they were moving from face-to-face to virtual. And so I loved really listening and to hear what the words were, but then to turn those into the image. And I think that piece of to take this, maybe it's a 2-hour conversation, maybe it's a 3-hour planning session. And then part of what I love is to take that and start to kind of put it together. And then that actually turns into one of my other favorite or memorable experiences is to be able to, because I'm the lead on designing the graphics and the visual communication, but to have that collaboration with you and with our, whoever we're partnered with, but then to invite y'all into that creative process. And we get that deep collaboration there. And so that we've been working on some recently, and to go in and you're like, here are the parameters. But then I really try to hold it to where I don't know what's going to come out. I have some ideas, but then to bring it back to the group and say, oh, I like this, I don't like that, or does this communicate what we want to communicate? And most importantly, and we do this in all of our branding and communication, does it address a problem? Does it help solve a problem? And when I say problem or challenge or communicate effectively. And I think that's the part I like. I really do enjoy that, listening to find out what the parameters are and identifying those, and then to go on that collaborative journey to see how it's going to turn out.
Interesting. I see what you did there, because if anybody watched our first one in this series, my answer was about listening and collaboration, synthesizing information, collaborating with people. So I like how, yeah, Roxanne's like, let me just take Ken's answer for planning, which is like, probably my favorite thing, and let me flip that into the branding and communication piece. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of complement some of the things that you were saying too, like, I love our creative process. I love how we do that. It is one of the unique things I think we do, because when people look at Eye2Eye Technologies, of course, you're thinking like the video communications and how we help people with different design options, and how we help people with different events or implementation support. And like, we have this hidden talent of that whole branding and artistic piece, with Roxanne's artistic skills and just our the way we creatively think about things and put things together. It is really one of the things that sets us apart. And I like our process for that, and how it's continued to evolve. Like you said, like, we're working on another co-branded conference theme image right now. And yeah, it was great coming together with that, and, looking at, okay, well, what are the aspects that we want to come up with? And, the theme has something to do with bridges and like these three elements with that. And so right away we're like, oh, we want to use a bridge for that. And so, we met, like, Roxanne kind of took us through like, okay, hey, here are the design elements that we've used before. Let's look at those things. What are the things that we liked about that? Here's what we're thinking about doing this year. Like, what are the parameters? Like, what do we need to make sure we work into this image? And, it's a whole process, because you want to be very, what word do I want to use? You want to be very careful how you select things and how you portray things, because, you can't just throw everything together and the image is so confusing. It really is like a piece of art where you want people to see it and immediately it speaks to them. And you also want it to be an interesting piece where you can use it in different ways too, where it's like, oh, in this way, I'm really seeing this come through. And then when I'm looking at it in this format, oh, now this is speaking to me. So it really is a very, it's like a tightrope walk, right? It's like you got to find that line of, between, minimalistic and, too much information. You got to find that line so you're presenting it in a clear and meaningful way. So yeah, I love that process that we've come up with. It's really cool for me personally to be able to like think up some things and be able to communicate that to Roxanne, which, sometimes can be a little rough, because we sometimes, speak different languages, even though we're talking about the same thing. But it's cool for me to be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about in my head. That looks exactly like that.
Mhm. Yeah, that was, as you were describing that, a couple things popped in, but I think that the communication, and a lot of times it's those clarifying questions, and sometimes early in the design process, it can feel kind of tedious and painstaking almost, where I'm like, is this what you mean? I mean, even the concept of bridge, once we really dove into all the different styles of bridges and what type of bridge do we want to use to communicate the conference theme. And that tightrope that you were describing, I think, is one that we do well. For me, it's the tension between something that's really cool and creative looking, and balancing that with something that is functional and easily understood. Because I've seen some things that I think some of the websites, when they would do the old Webby Awards, some of them, they're like, oh, this is a great creative website, but it was so not functional. It was hard to find stuff. You're like, yeah, it's aesthetically beautiful, but we want to have it to be creative, but also functional. Because that to me that's 100% what we're looking for. Because if you have to have two paragraphs to explain your image, it's a bad image.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Like, yeah, if it's too artistic where you're like, huh? Like, yeah, my wife and I like to go see plays. I just saw, I know this isn't exactly related to this, but we went to see a play. It was an award-winning play this weekend, and it was like halfway through, I'm like, what is even like? It was literally like after the play, I had to go look up, like, what was the point? Like, I don't even get this, and it was like it was so trying to be different and artistic that I felt like you'd lost the whole flow of the story because it was trying to just be too artistic and almost shocking to a certain degree. And I think sometimes you can do that with like an artistic piece too, where it's just too convoluted. Like you have to have notes to be able to figure out what it's even supposed to be communicating.
That made me think of one of my favorite pieces or favorite it was actually an illustration that I did, was the save the date, or actually it might have started as I think it started out as the virtual background for last year. But when I took the image of what my desktop looked like, and it had the laptop and the second monitor and all the things. And so I did a little sketch note illustration of that and used that within that virtual conference. And so we used it in different ways. And at first it was just the prompt for like, what does your desktop look like, and then we were like, oh, well, we could use this for save the date, and we changed the content that was on the different screens. And so the way I had it set up, it was my desktop. It was on a standing desk, and it was my phone and my laptop and my second monitor. But that was one thing that we don't use a lot of illustration in what we're doing, but if we do, it would be not just to showcase, oh, I can do this kind of illustration, but it would be like, does it serve a purpose for what we need to have that? Now, one of the pieces we haven't talked about, and this is one where the copywriting, which is, right now we've been talking about just the visual, and I think the copywriting is another part of the branding and communication that it's not super flashy. And the first thing you think of when you're like, oh, we need to make sure our colors are right and what we're saying. Well, you need to also make sure your words are, really tight, not super fluffy, and, correct grammar. I mean, it's like I said, not the super flashy, but people judge your event on everything they interact with.
Yeah, and I think the other part of the communication piece we help with is just communicating how to connect into the conference, how to do different things. And we're always very conscious of like, how do we say this in a way that can be easily understood? How do we format it so it can be somewhat scannable, but still give the information that people need? Yeah, there's an art to that communication too, because I mean, anybody that's been to a virtual conference or a virtual event, sometimes it feels like they've just copy and pasted information. It's this big blocks and you're like, what am I supposed to do? Or, maybe, they're using Zoom for the virtual conference. And so they're like, here, watch this Zoom video. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, how's this apply exactly to the conference? And, when we put together branding and communication, we really look at like, okay, well, what are the colors of this conference? What's the theme? How do we make sure that this connects with all the stuff that's been from promotion from the beginning of the launch all the way through? So it's like a holistic thing, but at the same time if this is the first thing anybody's really watched, they get the information that they need and it's easily understood.
I'll tag on to that. One of my I would say it took a while to do it, but one of the constituents that we are just so focused on it's serving our present, especially in the virtual conference. It really is serving the presenters, whether this is, town hall meeting, if it's investor update, if it's virtual conference. If you are presenting, we want to not assume that you know how the platform works, because every virtual platform is a little bit different. And one of my favorite pieces of collateral that I ever put together was the one when I put together, it was a video, but I had I cannot tell you how many different accounts I had, so that when a presenter would watch it, first I would, talk them through. So it's like sitting down in the office, having coffee with me first, so we have that welcoming. But then the actual everything that we provided in documentation and written form, I was able to show on the screen. And that is, I'd have the iPad coming in as a guest, even showing what it looks like when the meeting room starts to have people in it. And so it took quite a bit of planning before I shot that one and thinking through, okay, how can I make this look and mimic as close to their experience as possible? And that piece, I think that's, another part of the branding and communication and of really just we want to not assume any part of that. We don't want to assume everyone knows what the device is or what the theme is. We're going to restate it, and we're going to present it to you in many different ways throughout.
Well, are you ready for my memorable experience?
Oh, I thought we'd already had that. Yours wasn't just restating my memorable experiences.
No, I was complimenting what you said and responding to it.
Oh, so you have one. What is
Yeah, it was
yours?
one of the things you actually mentioned in one of your comments. My memorable experience, believe it or not, is virtual backgrounds.
Is it? Tell
And it's
me.
kind of ironic because I am not a virtual background fan. That's another rant for another day. But virtual backgrounds is a memorable experience because, and I might have shared this in another conversation as a side note or a webinar, but we were actively supporting a virtual conference, and one of the participants asked us, "Oh, hey, do you guys have a conference virtual background I could use?" And we were like, no. I mean, we're pretty good at anticipating things and having things before people even ask for them. But that was one thing, like, nobody had ever asked us that before. We'd never even thought of that before. And it was like, oh, well, no, but if you ask, you shall receive. It was like, okay, well, like Roxanne had mentioned earlier, it's like we had an image that we were using. It's like, oh, we can use this as a virtual background. And we came up with a couple other options based on some of the other imagery we had been using for the event. And just like that, it was like, oh, here's some virtual background options. And, because of that, now it's kind of one of our staples. It's like one of the things that's an element that we offer in all of the virtual events that we support. So that was kind of one of those, like, I like to call it like almost like a happy accident, right? Something that just kind of came together and just worked out beautifully. And now it's another resource we can use to help tie an event together and, bring people that are all over the place in different areas, with a commonality. So yeah, this year for an event, they even added like a digital business card to the virtual background. There's another third-party service out there that you can use to add these digital business cards with QR codes. And so that was kind of a little add-on that we had available for the virtual backgrounds, which is cool. So see, I didn't go with listening. I know you were like, I can't wait to see how he's going to work listening in here. Because, when I say listening, you're just like, wow, I got so much to say about that. I was like, I can't do that to everybody twice. I got to, at least skip one. Like, maybe next time I work listening into the answer somehow.
So you went with the surprise answer of the virtual background.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that would be if somebody's like, virtual backgrounds would be the last thing he'll ever say that's memorable. But here I am, just keeping everybody off kilter a little bit, on their toes. Never know what I'm going to come up with.
Well, this one, so we've done planning, and then this is marketing and communication. I mean, we did planning and then branding and communication. So what's next in the sequence?
I think next we have virtual hybrid environment. I think that's the next one.
Oh, nice to look at the environment. And yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, this is one of the services that is a little bit unique because we can merge it with our deep understanding of. We'll be talking about those virtual and hybrid environments in our next conversation. So thanks everyone for listening in, and we'll see you in our next video chat.